Welcome to the Finding Something More to Talk About talk show. I'm your host, Nancy Wrench. This podcast is designed to stimulate thought-provoking conversations as we gather diverse voices and dive into a variety of lifestyle topics. Join me now as we find something more to talk about. About 3 years ago, I found myself depleted. I had no energy. I couldn't get out of bed. I was constantly complaining, and I'm not a complainer. And I went to every doctor imaginable to try to figure out what was wrong with me. I was completely just depleted, and I was exhausted. And I remember last summer walking with 5 of my girlfriends down the beach, and one of them turned to me and said, "Have you ever heard of functional medicine?" And although I had heard of the name, I've heard of the term, I really didn't understand what functional medicine was. And I said, "No, but I do have a concierge doctor." She said, "No, that's not what functional medicine is." She said, "But I think Hoag has a new functional medicine department." And I thought, "You're kidding." Well, let me see, because I love Hoag and everything they represent. And I thought, well, that's credibility right there. Let me just check it out. So I immediately went home. I Googled what functional medicine was, and then I called Hoag Functional Medicine. And I could not be more thrilled. I called, they spent 15, 20 minutes with me, just going over what the program was. I was so excited after I got off the phone because I felt like I could be helped. I felt like, okay, I'm going to get some relief here. And so I quickly got my calendar all out and, okay, when can I come in? And of course, they had 84 people on the wait list. So again, oh my gosh. So it took a few months later, I did get the phone call. I am in the program, and I couldn't wait to share with all of you what this program has meant to me. It has really been a lifesaver. I feel like I have my energy back. I have my positivity back. I am back. So without any further ado, please welcome Dr. Cambria Judd from Hoag Hospital.
Hi.
Hello there. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Of course, delve right in and ask you a little bit about your background as a medical doctor and how you segued from working as a medical doctor to functional medicine, and how do they complement each other?
Okay, good question. It's like was a long journey. So went to medical school really not knowing for sure what I was going to do, but quickly once I did start medical school, there is kind of two schools of thoughts. Like they're like you're either a doctor or a surgeon. There's this like very clear two paths, and it was pretty clear I went to the surgeon path. That was more my personality and what I was interested in. And so an orthopedic surgery was really kind of where I was headed, where I felt like these are my people. Last minute, long story short, I ended up not doing that and ended up doing family medicine, and which was like the last thing I would have thought of doing. But even backing up a little bit before that, when I was, I think even in pre-med, I can't remember exactly, maybe my dad got prostate cancer. And there was a big, we lived in Salt Lake City, and there Huntsman Cancer is right there, and he was seen there. And I went researching and looking at different treatments and lifestyles, and started reading all this about sugar and cancer. And so I was telling him to change his diet. And I remember going in, and I was in pre-med, and his doctor saying, "Let him eat what he wants, it doesn't matter." And I was like, "What? But doesn't it?" But you're shy, and you're like, "Well, I don't know anything. Well, I can't be saying anything." And so, but I was always kind of looking and thinking to myself, this doesn't make sense that we don't look at anything that's Eastern or preventative. That doesn't seem like makes sense. But I'm so busy in med school, and you have so much pharmacology, and we have like maybe an hour of nutrition. So, I finished that. I went into family medicine and really saw on the front lines of disease in this country, which was shocking to me, actually. And I thought to myself, wow, this is not what I had in mind when I thought I wanted to be a doctor. My grandfather's a doctor. I mean, I was kind of like thinking I would be a healer. And this is like And I remember thinking like, all my patients are on the same meds. What is going on? Like they're all on the same 5 meds. And, I started talking even then about prevention, and there was no talk about that. And a lot of what we get taught is, statistics show that it doesn't matter what you say as a doctor, patients won't do the things that will help them. So it's no point in educating them. That's the message. And it's not done in a way, it's like a science-based way, like saying the studies show it doesn't matter. So you're going to be held to the standard of care. And so make sure they get on the drug. And so you're like, okay. But that bothered me. And then, I went on after that to do a sports medicine fellowship, because I really realized then how little family medicine doctors knew about sports medicine, because I'd spent so much time in orthopedics. I knew more than any of my attendings from day one on, those kind of the musculoskeletal system. So I wanted to do that fellowship because I knew for my patients in the future, I'd be encouraging them to exercise. And I had seen what happened on the route where patients just get sent to physical therapy or sent to a specialist and sometimes get surgery and it doesn't help. And something that we could have intervened on early and taken care of now is a chronic injury. And so I really wanted that specialty and went to San Diego for that fellowship. And during that time, I read this book called Evolution of Medicine. I can't even remember how it came across my desk, but it was it was written by an economist, and it talked about this functional medicine in the Cleveland Clinic. And I thought, what does that even mean? And so I looked this up, and there's this whole thing, and I'm thinking, because even in med school, I asked if I wanted to go to Eastern China to the school and do like a fellowship or a rotation there that was in Eastern medicine. And my dean was like, it's all just nonsense. And I was like, really? And he's like, oh yeah, sorry to break it to you, but yeah. And I remember just thinking, like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, there has to be more there. So that's kind of how I got to it. So I found that program, went to a 5-day work seminar, thing they had, conference, and literally was like, where has this been? And I was all in at that point. So I went straight into that.
Okay. So well, 2 questions next. So just tell us, what is functional medicine?
Yeah, good question. So that's the thing. It's like, well, what does this mean? But I think what's confusing is there's integrative, holistic, all these different terms out there. Yeah. Functional medicine, and I think the purpose that the Cleveland Clinic wanted to differentiate it from all these other terms, to say this is a science-based way of reversing disease. We have a process that's backed by science, which is integrative. Just means we're using anything out there. We're integrating other things outside of the conventional model, acupuncture, but it's not necessarily a science-based way that's been researched and studied on reversing disease. Holistic, just like the whole person. So these terms get kind of thrown around and they don't mean anything, but functional medicine actually does. It means that it's a science-based approach at reversing disease. And so I think they really made that point to differentiate themselves.
Do you think it complements, do you think it complements Western, can they work hand in hand?
Oh, for sure. I mean, now also we're having, as the program's gotten more popular, I'm having the specialists reach out to me that are seeing a lot of the patients that we're working together with to say, I believe in this, I believe in it for my family, and I need to send, could I send you all my patients? Because I realize when I'm treating their cancer here, now I see all this dysfunction going on and I don't have time to treat that. And so it's very complementary, because it's going to make the conventional treatments more effective, right? Because we're basically getting to the root cause of, like, we've got all this water today. It's like they're just like rerouting it here, water, to like keep the damage going on, but we figure out where it's coming from and stopping it. So it's very complementary. They work line.
So you recommend that if somebody's in your program, to keep their primary doctor as well?
Yeah, I mean, we all say that. That's one of our biggest challenges, I think. What I'm working to do this next year is bring in a primary care doctor that is that works within our program, that's in our meetings, that learns with the whole team, because so many of the patients that we get don't have a primary care doctor. Wow. And I think it's access, because I think for someone who doesn't have concierge like yourself, and I was a concierge physician for Hoag for a while, before I took on this position.
Mhm.
It's a long waiting list. And then frankly, a lot of the patients we see, they don't feel that there's much value in the what they get there. And so they don't have one. They'll have a PPO insurance so they can see specialists, but they don't have a primary. And so I just thought, well, I'm going to have to bring someone in, because at the end of the program, people are like, well, where do I go? And it feels wrong to just say good luck, right? But we
Right.
can't take on them in the primary care sense, because we're just trying to manage all this.
Well, the big question here is, how does your program work? And I just remember when I first started, all of the tests, and it was pretty exciting, because the tests that you require are tests, that we don't get from our regular doctor. One is the EEG, for instance. But can you just share with us how the program works, and if we have time to go into some of those tests, not too deep, but
Sure.
just a little bit about all the tests, because I thought that was that was a good selling point for me, because I wanted to know all that information that I knew that I wasn't getting from my other doctor,
Yeah, and I think I started where I was doing some sports medicine work for Hoag as a contractor in their NFL trust program, and then I joined as a concierge doctor, and quickly my panel got full. And they really, it was word of mouth. They were coming because I did functional medicine, and but I couldn't really do it in that model because it's a lot more testing and a lot more deep diving. You don't just refer out to specialists. So when I said, that I'm going to have to leave this model, and we started this at Hoag, there was no model, there was no structure of a program, there was no program that existed. So I, took kind of my panel that I created for my concierge on a blood, like the very extensive panel, which Nancy, because you had it that we send through Quest. And my goal was really to, I would send people to a program if I thought there was a good one out there. But there was a couple different problems. Hoag first really cared about their community, and I had quite a few of my concierge patients that were donors, and they really were behind this, and they were like, we need this. And I knew the Hoag needed it for the community. And I didn't trust really anyone to do it right, because I wanted to make it affordable to everyone if they cared enough. And it is expensive. I mean, I try to run it as inexpensively as possible, but a lot of the functional medicine doctors out there, they just don't take insurance, right? That's like your option.
You're right.
So we have this system, we have billing, we're in network with insurance. So I wanted to use this, kind of have it be a hybrid. So in talking about how it works, we do bill insurance, and there's a membership cost while you're in the program. So I created, okay, what would I want to start with to give not too much, because you want to personalize it, but also has to be kind of streamlined enough that we could have a program and have it be effective. So that's been the challenge from the start. And I started with just one MA, one nutritionist, and now like how big it's grown from there. But we started with just that basic lab work, where my expanded blood panel, and I'm looking at things in a different way than what's on the normal ranges, even in conventional labs. We see patterns that you're headed down to diabetes or inflammatory. You see these things, even if you're within ranges. And then some of the tests that I felt were critical is to have a nutritional profile, to have
which is really your core there, right? I mean, that nutritionist is, if you can take us through the process of like when I first came in, what that process was. I think that would be very interesting to this audience, because they are, I think, wondering, how does it work, and like what goes on. And I'm saying that for me, when I first came in, it was a little different because I wasn't used to it. So they have for instance, you have a nurse and a practitioner, and you have a nutritionist that kind of leads my path, my journey for the next X amount of months, right? So my question to you is, can you just explain to us how that works? So I come in the first appointment, and what takes place, and then as the months go by, what's taking place. And at the end, do you just say, bye-bye, Nancy? Or do I come back to you?
What's coming for you, right? Okay, first step is a consult. And, we bill your insurance for that. Or, it's just a consult. We sit down with you and say, what are you hoping to get? What brings you in? And it's a chance to say, do we think we could help you with this? Right. So that you can say, hey, this is what's I'm feeling. I have no energy or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then they tell us a little bit without having to give like an extensive history. And then
They
us
made
say,
me give an extensive history. They said, we're going to know every single thing about you
oh,
by
we will.
the 9 months.
Yeah, no, we find that out for sure. And things have changed over time too. Like I'm constantly changing the program, but the point is, can we take care of you? Can the things that you're having, is this something that we do? Do we feel confident in taking and managing your symptoms? Or is it like, sorry, I don't think we can help you there. And then for us to say, yes, we can or can't. And then for us to give an idea of what you're in for, like if we're so appropriate, like it's like informed consent, like, okay, this is what we're going to expect out of you. This is a partnership. And we do all this, but we're going to ask you to do some hard things when it comes to lifestyle and diet and things. Are you in, when we do this? And so that's the next thing. And then kind of, it's usually about this X amount, average length is about 10 months. So this is, our cost, and are you into that? So we have an initiation cost, I think it's about 1,500. And then we have a monthly membership, which is just like $495. So that pretty much are your costs, and you stay in it as long as you need. And I don't want to have like in my mind, I'm thinking everyone should be at a year, 100%. We shouldn't be having it go longer than that. And some people get better quicker, and everyone's different. And really, so I don't want to put people in too much of a box. And that's why I've done it like that. And so, yeah, the first step is, yes, let's get going. So first step really is about kind of, I have a lot of analogies I use. So it's kind of like, okay, you come in and it's like, what's going on in this body? What's happened in your life? So your initial is unique, because if you remember in your initial appointment, we say, start me from the beginning. Like, where did you grow up? What birth order were you? And we let patients sit for that hour and kind of tell their story. And that's not just your health story. I grew up in a family of 3. I was the oldest. We grew up here. Family life was hectic or whatever, right? And then they kind of in line tell. And as they're talking, and if there's something they don't want us to document, we won't. But it allows us to kind of hear. We've already read all the history that you've had to fill out for us, which is a lot. But we're able to really get to know you and also understand how these things have affected you, because we have a lot of people who cry at certain times, or you'll just feel their energy and the struggle at times. And so it gives us a real idea of understanding how all these nuanced things, and you're getting to sit there for an hour and talk about this, that's in itself helpful, because it's a reflection. And then we're able to say, okay, I used to do all these myself. And it's tough not being able to do this with a program growing, but I would be able to step back and go, okay, Nancy, you came in with these things. Let me show you how, with your life and what constitutes health, kind of how you got here. And then tell that back. And you're like, okay. And I think it gives the patient hope to feel like, okay, oh my gosh, I never even connected these things. And then we start in on the testing, right? So then the next step would be you're starting getting scheduled for your tests that we're going to do, blood tests. We do specialty tests, as you know, which are stool, micronutrient testing, hormone testing. And then you get scheduled with the nutritionists and start seeing them regularly. We're bringing in a health coach now that's going to help with, helping the patient along, especially with those crazy tests, because people are like, what do I do with these tests? And then you get scheduled with the exercise physiologist. I mean, there's a lot, right? We have
There's a
routine.
lot, and there's the EEG, and then there's the breath test.
Right.
There's so much, and I always loved it, and I still do. I think I have a couple more to do. Because they're tests that we don't normally get, and you can't wait to see what are they going to find? What is this? And I do want to add, just to be transparent, that is the cost, but there is supplement, an additional supplement cost, too.
Yep, we make no money on labs, the specialty labs. I give you directly to that. We have an account for a supplement company, so we give discount on that to try to help with those costs, because we know it's expensive. And I really am about food first. And even it's really tough with supplements, because they really are important at They are, and sometimes you definitely need them, and it's getting increasingly hard with our food system. But we really try to teach you principles of so that you, when you're through this at the end, you kind of know, the principles of how so you'll be able to answer your own questions in the
Right.
future.
Do you, are there typical reasons that people look to alternative medicine? And, I mean, like I said, I was walking down the beach with my friends and we're all talking about ailments, but it's fatigue and sleep problems and headaches and my stomach and this or that. What are some of the, stories or success stories that you've experienced this last couple of years, since you've opened?
Oh gosh. We have so many of those. That's something that it's on my list of like capturing and getting out there. Because we don't do much marketing because we're just trying to keep up.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, really, I think it's that people feel heard, that somebody's actually listening to them, that they don't feel when they say, I don't want to take a medication. I want to understand how to do this, that they're met with a partner to say, okay, let's talk about pros and cons and why I would. It's not like I never say we should take a medication. I mean, there's some of my patients that it's important to do that. But so I think that's important. And I think there's people out there who just don't want to take any drugs, right? They're like, I do not want a medicine, no matter what. And those people I have to explain, like, I hear you, but here, let's just understand it. And if it's something that's going to help, and we look at the upside and the downside of things, then we can do that. And I think that allows them to feel safe to say, okay, I trust you. And where it's before it's just been take it with no questions asked. And I think that's what really is what they are wanting to do, is just not be at all involved in something going in their body, which is very reasonable.
Right, right.
So I think that the fact that we do things in the way we do it, people get better. I mean, honestly, if no one got better, they wouldn't continue to come. So, you're asked to do hard things, but.
Right, exactly. And what I do like about your program too, because you're one person and you're the doctor there, and your name is probably why some people go there. But you can't see everyone, and that's why you have your groups of people that are with your different patients. But what I like is when and if I needed to talk with you, I know that I can set up an appointment and just meet one-on-one with you. And I really appreciate that. So thank you. But I want to ask you this. What is your response to those who say functional medicine lacks scientific evidence? What do you say to that?
And I get that a lot from more other physicians.
Yeah.
Well, and I know 100% that that's not true. I mean, I just went through the testing. It's all proven. It's science-based. It's what whole functional medicine and Cleveland Clinic stand behind. But I just rather say, if you look at the results, the results are there. People are getting better. We can talk about the science and we can go, and there's plenty of science to back that, but patients are getting better. Their labs are changing. They're feeling better. And that, there's a survey, it was before COVID came out in this country on alternative versus, conventional medicine. What would people prefer? And it was like 58% before COVID to alternative. And so and I'm sure it's much higher now. I just think they don't really know. And I remember even when I was looking to try to find, when I was getting all this feedback of it's just nonsense or it's nothing there, I was like, well, how do I know to go to a program that's not vetted? How do I know I'm being taught something that's good, right? Or what if it is dangerous? And so, I think with functional medicine, that's the nice thing I could say is that we do have the science behind it. There's plenty of studies that show that. But also, remember what determines standard of care. Maybe I don't know if people understand this, but standard of care, which is how we all practice, is based on insurance reimbursement, which is not based about current science. So it takes 15 to 20 years sometimes for something, once we know it in science and it's science-based and proven, to actually become how we treat patients in that way, because it has to go through, Medicare has to pick it up, but no one wants to pay for that until they have to, right? So this is why if you look at your lab ranges, it's wide, right? You've got how could a thyroid optimal go from 0.4 to 5.5 TSH? That's insane, right? You have to be, like I always say, those are your not dying today labs.
Right.
You're in the red, that's really big. That's a problem. But it comes down to money because, they don't want to pay for it.
Right.
So
Right.
science is there. There's no question about that.
Okay. Okay, can you talk a little bit about the EEG? Can you explain what you actually are looking for and what you see and why it is beneficial for us?
Well, and I had mine done for the first time in 2017 by this company. And actually, one of my concierge patients was the one who introduced me to the medical director there at the Brain Treatment Center here, just right around the corner from our office. So, and they were working mainly with veterans, and that have a lot of PTSD, a lot of, treatment resistant depression and trauma. And so I went in curious because at the same time I was working with the NFL and also doing some executive health. And the NFL had, it was all about CTE at the time. We did a lot of that during my residency too, my fellowship in sports medicine. And so, concussion was a big deal always, and looking at concussion and how that affects the brain. And all of a sudden there was an objective way we could see the changes on a brain, not just like epilepsy type of thing with an EEG, but a way to say, wow, look at what changed. Look at how your brain is communicating with itself. And I just thought that was fascinating but at that time, I wanted to bring it into the NFL program, into our executive program. But at the time, it required if anyone's had an EEG, it takes like an hour just to get set up. They're putting little electrodes in each spot. And you've got this head full of goop, and then you lay down for an hour. And I thought, well, that's not going to happen. That's really cool, but I don't know how we could do that. And then I got busy with the program and then got circled back, crossed it again with them in another side way. And they said, oh no, we've got this cool helmet now. It looks like a bike helmet. And technology's got to the point where we can put this thing, adjust it, and have you have a test in 10 minutes. And I was like, let's talk. So I went back in and looked, and they had gotten, all this data that they've been collecting over the years. They were working with professional sports teams and Formula One drivers, and they were doing all this exciting stuff. And I was like, oh, I got to have this. I got to have this in the program. So at the same time, they'd asked me to speak for Hoag at something called Hoag Innovators, which is like innovative new stuff. And so I was like, perfect, I'll speak on that. And so like, who could be more innovative than this? And so, and it's just a way to see how your brain is communicating. It is the back, the center, and the front all firing and talking at the same time. So the same way we have an EKG where we're looking at the heartbeat, we have electrical signal like that in the brain. And we can see what kind, if you're firing, your brain is communicating at the same time. When the things that can change that are concussion, sure. So a trauma like that, but also hormone, when you go through menopause, hormone changes, vitamin deficiencies we see, lack of sleep, a lot of, trauma, drug substance abuse. And that's where we see changes that aren't optimal. So what we try to do really, there's a lot of different things that go in to make us deficient in whatever we find, right? Let's say it's hormones, we replace. And usually with that, we replace, and most of the time, if it's menopause, we got to keep those going, right? Big on those. Yeah. Supplements are a little different. So you can be really low in those things. And you just now have gotten so depleted that even getting enough in your diet is not going to get your tank filled back up. So we sometimes, there's supplements if we're having to clear your gut and kill certain bacteria. That's stage one. Then we go to try to give you the nutrients and antioxidants and minerals that you're deficient in. Once we get those up, the goal is to kind of now take away those extras that you're getting with supplements. There might be a few that we keep you on to kind of have a base, but it's know how you're getting those from your food. And it should be that. So the rule is like you start feeling great, like you're saying. When you start feeling great is when we start, if it's a supplement, then we start pulling back and see, do you still feel great? And then we even maybe pull back more. That's kind of how we do that. And I think that's sometimes not done very well in functional medicine. And the problem is if you can just stay on a supplement forever, sometimes you can almost push it too much to the other direction. Mm-hmm. It's really about a balance. So it's a hard thing to teach. It's a hard thing even to teach my nutritionists about how to do that because they get uncomfortable. But that's where we should be. That's the right way to go. Okay. Regardless of your genetics or anything, your body is so much smarter than we are than just thinking you can supplement something away.
Is there anyone that is not a good candidate for working with a functional medical practitioner?
Sometimes if you are about to undergo a major surgery, and it's going to take all your effort and anything just to recover from that, there might be timing issues, where the time's not good, whether it's another health thing that's forefront and needs to happen.
Mhm.
Sometimes we'll say, go get that done first, get through that, and then come to us, because your body can't take all this on at once. There's people who, I would say you have to be willing to want to get better more than anything sometimes, because we have some people that are like, well, I want you to get me better, but I don't want to change this, and I don't want to stop drinking for any amount of time. And it's like, well, there might be some things we need to have you do. And so I think it's just a personal, and my dad said to me, I'd rather die than change my diet. And you have to respect that. Everyone has their own choice on what they want to do. I mean, he ended up passing away, and he probably would have anyway. But point is that, like, we all can choose. I just want people who want to get better and they want to have an option for them. So I'd say people that aren't willing to change probably aren't good candidates. And yeah, if other thing, but most of the time I'm trying to think, sometimes there's like very complicated Lyme or mold that sometimes I feel I don't know if my team is at the level to take care of that, and I'll send them to someone that's all they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, we are just about out of time. And I do have one more question for Dr. Judd, but I first wanted to mention that Finding Something More is all about finding, being, and doing, inspiring, motivating, and encouraging everyone to find, which is your spiritual well-being, your purpose, being, which is your personal growth and development, and doing, which is your outreach and your giving back. And when all three of those areas aren't full, we become unfulfilled. We become complacent. We become depressed, et cetera, et cetera. If you would like to know more about how to fill up those gaps, please visit our website at findingsomethingmore.org. I also wanted to give a plug to our mentorship program. I'm very proud of it. I've worked on it for the last couple of years. We're not only a one area mentorship program now, we have 5 areas. There's not one area in life that we haven't hit. If you are interested in becoming a mentor, we have a training program. Or if you're interested in being a mentee, if you're struggling right now and you need somebody to walk alongside you, that's what we're here for. Jump on the website, fill out the form, and we are here to help you. It's a wonderful, wonderful platform. We are now on a national platform arena, which is really exciting. And I just can't say enough about it. Finding Something More has been around since 2007. We just became a nonprofit 501c3 in the last year and a half. So our model has changed. But if you get on there and you see our past events and see what we've done, you'll see that we have a history and we're not new as far as who we are. So with that said, Dr. Judd, I have one more question for you. What is your something more?
Well, thanks, Nancy, for saying all that you've done. That's amazing. And I mean, the people that are out there with your passion and caring and changing this world and putting out good, the energy of help, truly coming from a source of wanting to improve things. I think there's such a power behind that. And I really believe spiritually about those things, and energetically, we're all part of this network and this web that's all together. And so I think for me is to stay aligned with that. And that's what I try to do every day is where should I go? Like, where do you want me? And that's, I don't know if that's to God or to whatever it is, it's saying to help and to increase the level of joy, vibrational energy, whatever in this planet, what can I do? And I think for me, a lot of it is about sharing what I know, and also empowering patients is really important for me to teach them. So I don't want them, I'll walk in a room sometimes and say, do you know why you take that supplement? And then nutritionists think, uh-oh, I hope they say they know, because I want people to know why, because the why is the most important thing. So I would say, if I can help people understand, instead of reacting and feeling fear and defensive or upset, to be curious and just to say, okay, there has to be a reason why, and understand that you can find out, and you don't need to be a doctor to be able to have great health and even understand all this. And so to help people understand that, so that they can go and navigate life in a way where they can be happy and achieve all the things they want, including health, and without fear that they don't know, or they need to align with a doctor in order to get that. I hope I can work more in that way, so that I can teach people to figure that out and understand how to do that themselves, I guess would be my ultimate purpose.
For those curious to learn more or to support Finding Something More, please visit findingsomethingmore.org. And until next time, remember, there's always something more to talk about. See you then.